My name is Christopher Allen Maloney, and this is Why This Movie, a podcast where we talk about the movies we love and why we love them. Today I'm speaking with Nicole, a librarian and fellow Kathleen Edwards fan from Colorado. So Nicole, what movie are we talking about today?
We are talking about the 1985 classic, Real Genius.
I don't want to hear about any problems, Don. Just as long as we have a working weapon by the end of June.
I haven't had a working weapon since Korea.
When the military runs short on brains, they go hunting at Pacific Tech, an exclusive institution for outstanding intellects, where the superstar of smarts is Chris Knight.
You have a jacuzzi?
Absolutely.
His hobbies violate the laws of gravity.
What are you doing out there?
Floating, sir.
His homework could win a Nobel Prize.
He's one of the 10 finest minds in the country.
And his IQ is higher than most people can count.
I can't stand it. Have you ever seen a body like this before in your life?
She happens to be my daughter.
Oh, well, then I guess you have.
But when Chris makes the scientific discovery of the century,
You did it.
his classmates want the credit.
You're not number one around here anymore.
His professor wants the publicity.
Hi.
That's it.
And the military wants to use his discovery as the ultimate weapon.
This is not good.
So Chris is about to turn getting even into a science.
Crossbow is non-discriminator and all systems are go.
And show them
Roger.
Open bomb bay doors.
they should never try to outsmart a real genius.
Was no longer lasing efficiently. It's not shutting down.
Shut it down.
This movie was released in 1985 and stars a then unknown Val Kilmer as Chris Knight, the titular genius. Directed by Martha Coolidge, it also stars John Grease, who would go on to play Uncle Rico in Napoleon Dynamite, and William Atherton, who just the year before had played the bureaucratic blowhard Walter Peck in Ghostbusters.
You know, when I first brought you into this school, I thought you'd become another Einstein. And you were well on your way. And then?
I got a haircut.
You're disappointing me, Chris.
And you, me, Jerry.
Look, it's about our deal.
I know, Jerry, and I have advanced your project more than any 3 students on campus.
That was yesterday. What have you done for me today?
Well,
I want 5 megawatts by mid-May.
Jerry, I think you might be getting a little obsessive about all this. Now, I took in Mitch, okay? And he's coming along fine. He's working his guts out for you, so what exactly do you want?
I want 5 megawatts by mid-May. Look, I don't care if you're arrogant. I don't care if you're disrespectful. But your attitude's distracting Mitch, and that I won't have. The rules have changed. I want it by mid-May.
Real Genius has a lot going on beneath the surface. It's a battle between smart kids and authority figures, and an indictment of America's hawkish, ready for war at any given time attitude. It shows the adverse effects of applying pressure on young minds, all while packaging everything up in a full-on 1980s teen comedy aesthetic.
Mitch, you don't need to run away from here. When you're smart, people need you. You can use your mind creatively.
Notice you don't study too hard.
Bingo.
I had not seen Real Genius. I was aware of it a little bit. It came out the year I was born. So I watched it in preparation of us talking, and I just went in cold. And I was really surprised by it. Because, well, I've never heard anyone say it's their favorite movie before, or really anything about it before. So I was surprised that this was the title you wanted to talk about, first of all. But also, it sort of reminded me of Wayne's World in a way, because, like, with Wayne's World, you kind of go in expecting some silly humor and, like, some kind of almost like anarchic attitude, but then it has a lot of other stuff you don't expect, like the obscure historical references, and like there's obviously like some real intelligence behind the humor. And so with this movie, I was really surprised to find like a whole commentary on like the military industrial complex, and pleasantly surprised, I mean.
Well,
So
and it is because when you think of nerd movies from the 80s, you think of the Revenge of the Nerds and movies like that, Weird Science, where the nerds, even though they're the heroes or anti-heroes of the movies, they're still made fun of in a sense. Whereas this movie is just a movie about smart kids, smart young people who realize they're being taken advantage of and get revenge. And I don't think they talk down to the nerd in this in the same way that a lot of the 80s movies tended to. And I can understand, I know that I can't remember which of the John Hughes films Martha Coolidge had been attached to, but I know that she dropped out after having some creative differences with Hughes, and I'm almost wondering if it is in the treatment of some of the characters. And the other thing about this movie too, and of course it has the inappropriate sexual relationships, the misogynistic stuff that you're gonna go into a movie from the 80s just expecting, I think. But it's not nearly as big a part of the storyline as it tended to be in a lot of other 80s movies. And I think that's why this one sits like in my top five favorite movies of all time.
I loved how like full blown '80s aesthetic it goes.
Oh yeah, no, they don't. The pool party in the college, it definitely has it is everything from the 80s. It's the Jane Fonda workout outfits, the big hair, the music, the everything.
Do you mind me asking how old are you?
I am, ooh, math is hard. 43.
Okay, so you were
So
around for the '80s a little bit.
I was, but it's funny because I don't think I discovered this movie until I was in high school. I went through a Val Kilmer period in high school. We're just gonna call it that. And I did a deep dive, and because I am on the spectrum, I tend to get a little obsessive about things, and actors are one of those things. So if I really like an actor, I'm gonna dive in and I am gonna watch everything you have ever been in, regardless of if it's good or not. But I don't know what it was about this one. I think because, the nostalgia of the 80s, even in the 90s, everybody was still into the John Hughes films. Everybody talked about Pretty in Pink and Weird Science. And of course, I love The Breakfast Club. That is my favorite of the John Hughes films, I think. Um, but this one, for whatever reason, me and my weird group of friends, this is the one that resonated with us. We all have seen it a billion times. I had to order it special from Suncoast Video on VHS in 1994, maybe, because I had pirated, VHS to VHS copied it from the video store. And of course, that wasn't good enough for me. I had to own the real copy. So, yeah, Suncoast special ordered that sucker for me, and it's still in a box somewhere. It's one of the few VHS tapes I will not part with.
Well, how did you respond to it the first time around?
I think because I was friends with nerds and weirdos, like none of us were ever the cool kids. This was a movie that we could see ourselves in a little bit. I mean, most of us were super smart, whether we were recognized that way or not. Um, and so we were more able to see ourselves in these characters than probably a lot of the other popular movies of the time. Also, like my friends and I were not like my female friends and I were not traditionally girly, so we weren't out watching the rom-coms and like the Titanics of the 90s. Those were not our genre of film. So there was just something I think about the group dynamic in this, and then also how smart it was. Like you said, the historical commentary, the social commentary, um, that you could make a funny film about a bunch of weirdos, but have it be relevant and smart at the same time without being at the expense, I think was something that definitely called to all of us.
So Val Kilmer's character and the Mitch character and those guys, they were like you and your friends.
A lot. And it's funny. I think that the and Chris Knight is very much an anti-hero in a lot of ways, and I think that he definitely uh, resonates with more people than we realize. We all want to be the super cool hero, but deep down, most of us are just giant nerds trying to get by.
In what way did you, other than being super smart and not being, I guess, traditionally girly, like you said, um, in what ways, like in what parts of the movie or what aspects of the movie did you feel like you saw yourself represented?
I think just the ability to use your intelligence to, oh, how do I put this? Like being able to be smart and cool, like those two things could go together, whether like you realize them or not. So I think, and like the awkwardness of Jordan's character, like knowing that there's other people who were like that out there.
Oh, hi, good morning. I thought I saw you come in here. Oh, we met last night. Remember, I had the sled with me? I'm Jordan. Oh, here, I made you a sweater. Last night? Yeah, it's just something I do with my hands. I hope I got the size right. I'm pretty sure I did. I have a brother, and I use him for a sizing comparison. And I have a pretty good eye for that sort of thing, so I just went ahead and made you one because, you know, I was up. Are you peeing? Yeah. Oh, I never sleep. I don't know why. I had a roommate, and I drove her nuts. I mean, really nuts. They had to take her away in an ambulance and everything. But she's okay now, but she had to transfer to an easier school. But I don't know if that had anything to do with being my fault. But listen, if you ever need to talk or you need help studying, just let me know, because I'm just a couple doors down from you guys, and I never sleep, okay?
I didn't get diagnosed with ADHD or autism until I was 40. So when I was a teenager, I'm watching these characters who are probably on the spectrum somewhere and going, oh my God, there are people out there like me who have friends and fun and they can do things and not just be the weird kid. Um, and I know like the scene in the beginning with the where they turn the entire dorm into the ice rink, and it's the first time you meet Jordan, and she comes sailing down the frozen staircase, and when Mitch asks her if she's okay, and her first response is, "Not emotionally, no, I'm not." That is a quote that I use very regularly in my life when people ask me how I'm doing, because it ultimately sums up like, no, emotionally, I'm not okay, but I'll figure it out. And the fact that somebody who is like, she is very singularly focused on what she wants to do, like she knows what she's good at and she's going to keep doing it. Um, and she doesn't care. And I just love that aspect about her character specifically. I don't know. There's just like, I think I see a little bit of myself in each of them because they like, each of them has a different sense of humor, a different sense of purpose, a different way that they see themselves in the world. And watching them all grow into better people by the end of it, by realizing like they can take control of their future. They don't have to be dictated by, the person who's telling them this is how you have to use your intelligence.
This is something that I talk to my daughter a lot about because she's 14 and she's in ninth grade and really having a complicated time of it, trying to figure out like who she can trust amongst her amongst the other kids she goes to school with, who accepts her for who she is, and kind of where she fits into all of it. And so I'm always telling her, like, just find the other kids who are as weird as you are, or who are weird in the same way, and just stick
And that
together.
embrace your weird.
Yeah.
That I wish I had been more comfortable with that in my teen years. Like I had my small group of friends, but it was like you're in high school, you still want to be liked, and you want to be accepted. Um, and it's so hard to balance both of those pieces. And I think from what my work with kids in my job, the weird kids are always the ones who gravitate towards me. They're the ones that are part of my manga club and come to our teen nights. Um, and it's fun to watch three different school districts worth of weird kids find each other just solely based on their weird. And it, the thing that I'm seeing today more than I think I did growing up in the 80s and 90s is that weird is cool and being a nerd is cool. Like there's a chic to it now, or maybe they just don't care as much. And I love that I can help empower that. And like and I love that you encourage your daughter to find her weird tribe.
Yeah. That's the trying to, there are certain dynamics in high school, especially where it's like very clear, like these are the kids who are cool and accepted and kind of at the top socially. It's so hard to compete with that. It's impossible
Hmm.
to compete with that. So, that's why my only advice I can offer her from my own experience is just don't even try to compete. Like just do your own thing and let it be as odd as it naturally is, because there have to be, in a school that size, there have to be other kids who are going to get it.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a whole lot of trial and error, and that part of it sucks. But, you know, you find that one club or that one, class that you took that, and honestly, that's how I found my kids was I took one we called it intercession. It was 6 week bizarre set of classes that you could take when we came back after Christmas before third quarter started. And I took an improv and theater class because I was a theater nerd growing up. I did musical theater. That's how I met one of my best friends, and she and I are still friends. And from that, doing different theater classes is how I kind of collected theater and art, is how I collected the weird group of people that I ended up being friends with. And there are still a good handful of them that I am friends with today. And I never would have thought I would still be friends with people I was friends with in high school.
It's amazing. For me, it was the band. I played the tuba in the marching band, and then also the drama club. And I kind of accidentally ended up in both of them. But I mean, we're at the time we're recording this, we're finishing up the Christmas break, and I was traveling back to where I'm from over the past few days, and two friends that I met from band and from the drama club over 20 years ago, I saw two of them and we caught up, and these are friendships that have lasted, like you said, since that time. And it's amazing to me, like my daughter was with me. She said, is this like what you do? You make friends at this time and where I am in my life, and then when I get to where you are in your life, you're still friends with them.
Hmm.
It was really cool for her to see that, and also to just kind of look back and think, whatever it was, whatever that spark was that drew us together in the beginning, is still there, because we're making sure that every time we're in the same general part of the country, we meet up and catch up and check in. So I'm curious. You said you didn't get a handle, or it didn't get a diagnosis on ADHD and being on the autism spectrum till you were 40.
Hmm.
I mean, how did that impact you having a diagnosis?
It has made my life make a lot more sense. We, in my parents' defense, my mom has always suspected, but I grew up in an era where girls don't have those things. Um, and so I just kind of had to learn to mask and cope. And to its detriment, I did burn out my senior year in high school. Like I had a uh, full burnout. I didn't end up going on to college like the rest of my friends did. I dropped out of high school, got my GED. I ended up going sporadically to community college. And I always thought, my God, I'm a failure because I was always top of my class. And then I couldn't do it anymore. And now as an adult, trying to figure out who I am and what I'm capable of, I realized if I had just understood how my brain works, things probably would have been very different for me. But I'm not upset at the trajectory that my life took, um, because I am able to now talk to young people about what happened to me and who I am now. Because the teens that I work with regularly ask me all the time, like, have you always been like this? And I'm like, well, yeah, I've always been like this. But they're like, you're so comfortable with who you are. And I said, it's taken me a very long time to get there because I always thought there was something wrong with me. And just knowing that, it's not a flaw, that there's nothing wrong with me, that this is just who I am as a person, and being able to use all of those things as strengths and not weaknesses has been like an amazing turn of events over the last handful of years.
Yeah. I actually had a somewhat similar experience, I would say. Not with ASD, but with not really understanding the kind of care that my mental health needed,
Mm-hmm.
and also having kind of a burnout in college and leaving because I had to get a handle on it, and I just could not keep up with what was expected of me at school. And so there was that, like you're talking about, like feelings of being a failure, and then just kind of eventually finding a way that made sense and that still wasn't very conventional, but it did end up being, I guess, what I needed. And there was a lot of like in this movie Real Genius, I noticed that there was a lot of commentary on like the pressure that's put on kids in an academic setting especially. And you see them, I mean, like there's one scene, it's like a study montage
Mm-hmm.
where one of the kids, no one even says anything because I think they kind of expect it. It's probably kind of typical, but one of the kids just kind of buckles under the pressure of all this constant studying and stands up and screams and has this outburst and then just runs out of the room. And then everyone goes back to studying.
Watching the scene where he just stands up and screams, I think every kid who's been in that position or adult who was a kid in that position, just like a part of you goes, I feel that. Like I feel so seen right there because you've had that moment where you've wanted to just stand up and scream because it's the only thing you have left in you to give.
So you talked about going into a deep dive on Val Kilmer. Um, I I loved his attitude in this movie, and he's always been interesting to me as an actor. And I was thinking uh, when I was watching this, how the only kind of thing I can think about when I look at his career is that there's no common denominator. There's no thread that I could see because it seems like his main criteria for what movie he does or what role he plays is that it was just completely unexpected and different than what he did before. Because after this, the very next year was Top Gun, and those
Mm-hmm.
parts could not be more different. And then a couple years later was Willow, where he plays like a swordsman soldier in a mythical story. And then a few years after that was he played Jim Morrison in The Doors. And then my favorite of his roles when he played Doc Holliday in Tombstone. But like every one of those it was just kind of all over the place. So when you were super interested in him, is it fair to say it was a hyperfixation?
It is 100% fair to say that it was hyperfixation. It started, uh, let's see, I'm trying to look at what year Batman Forever came out because I can tell you that's the year
95.
that it started. Yep, that was the year that it started, 1995. So we saw Batman Forever, and I went, this is the actor that I'm going to be obsessed with this year. So I went to the movie store or the video rental and figured out which because I mean this is the days. Okay, kids, this is the days before the internet. So like if we wanted to deep dive on somebody, we had to go to the video store and find the nerd video clerk who knew everything about movies. And so like I just went through all the movies they had and found all the Val Kilmer movies I could find. And I probably watched them too many times to be healthy. I will say, like in my Top Secret, which was his first movie in '84, is another one of my favorites. And it's your traditional spoof movie from the '80s, but there's singing and dancing, and it is just one of the most ridiculous films. And I love Airplane, and I love Naked Gun movies, but I don't know why Top Secret wasn't as popular as it was. And then going in and oh gosh, which one was it? Kill Me Again that he did with his uh, at the time his wife, and it's I mean, it is again, it is not the movie that you would expect he would have done after doing a spoof comedy and a college comedy, and it's very serious action movie, and it probably is another one that eight people have heard of.
Yeah, usually there's not something that I've never even heard of, so I'm intrigued by this one.
Yeah, so this one, it was 1989, so it was after Willow. It is a product of its time. If I went back and watched it now, I would probably go, why did I like this movie so much? But that, and then Thunderheart, where again, he played a detective, or no, he played an FBI agent, and this one takes place on a reservation, and it's the work between the FBI and the reservation police. So yeah, I really, like, I went deep.
If you could say succinctly, like if you were meeting someone for the first time, why this movie means so much to you, what do you think you would say?
Succinct is not my middle name, so I will try my hardest. But I would say Real Genius means so much to me because it, A, reflects back on a time where, in spite of everything that was happening mentally and emotionally for me, it brings thoughts and feelings of people who made me feel safe. But also, it's funny and smart, and it, it does justice to its main characters in ways that movies of its general ilk tend not to do. And I think it's a movie that everyone can find something of themselves in, but you can still sit back and laugh. It is a deep down, laugh out loud kind of movie. But you'll probably also learn something too, whether you realize it or not, if it's something historical or scientific.
That's a beautiful way to put it. The movies that have meant the most to me also do feel like safe spaces. And they're the ones that I keep going back to over and over because you don't want to stop feeling safe.
Hmm. And I think if you've had any mental illness issues or trauma, being able to hold on to those safe spaces, even if it's putting a VHS tape in, is incredibly important.
Thank you for listening to Why This Movie. If you have a movie that you love that you'd like to talk about, email me at christopherallenmaloney@gmail.com, and you may be featured on an upcoming show.